This is the 2018 Kawasaki VN1700 Voyager. I'm going to put on a set of rear speakers today. As you can see, nothing there right now. I did an unboxing video of them earlier. Here are the pieces and parts I'm going to need. I've got the two speakers, the templates. I like a little bolt tray. You're going to need like a 1/16 drill bit. I'm using a 1/8. You're also going to need a 5/16 drill bit, which is like an 8mm ratchet, 10mm socket, small extension, pencil, and the pieces that come with it, including a couple zip ties. My first step here is going to be to cut out the template and fold it on the dotted lines. Got the templates cut out. Went with 3 different tools. Started with the scissors, went to the razor knife, ended up going to the X-Acto knife. Was easier to cut it out. I'm sure it doesn't have to be precise, but either way, I want to get as close as I can. The other thing I did grab was a roll of painter's tape, just so I can tape the templates in place while I drilled the holes. Let's get started. Open up the trunk. First thing we need to do is remove the interior tray here. There are 4 push pin tabs. I'm not sure if you have ever tried to get these out before or not, but I'm going to show you how to get those out. I'm going to use the 1/8 inch drill bit that I got. You can use a screwdriver, a punch, Phillips head screwdriver, basically whatever you want. But in order to get these out, you press down on them easy. Don't push too hard or you'll push them right out through the bottom. Push down till it clicks a little bit. Do the 4 corners. Once you get those out, just take your finger and the tab pops out in your hand. Just going to pull those out. After we get those out, the tray will simply tilt back towards you so it's away from the cable, and the tray lifts up out of there. Next thing I want to do is I want to go ahead and take my seat off. That way when I'm drilling, first of all, I don't drill a hole through my seat, which of course would be a bad thing. And second of all, we still need to get to the wires underneath it. But anyhow, if you've never taken your seat off before, there's a key slot down below. If you press down a little bit on the back seat, turn to the left a slight bit, seat will pull forward, come out, front seat lifts up off the 2 little rubber tabs in the back, pull it to the back of the motorcycle, and your seat is off. Already set the left in there. The right hand side is right here. It's confusing for some people when you're working on a vehicle, which side's the left, which side's the right versus driver, passenger, all that good stuff if you're in a car. Basically the best way to remember it, if you're on the vehicle or sitting in the vehicle from the driver's position, that's how you determine your left and your right hand side. So I haven't taped the left one in yet. I'm going to tape the right one in place, show you how to get it positioned. I'm going to do the left one, and then we'll drill our template pilot holes and then drill the regular holes afterwards. I'll start by filling this into the top, fitting it into the top groove. I'm just going to kind of push it in position with my fingers, use my fingernails. And once I get it kind of where it looks like it belongs, I'm going to tape it in place and make sure that the other side basically looks just like it, because once you do one side, you want the other side of course to match, because if not, then you're going to have a major problem because your speakers aren't going to line up properly. It's going to look like crap from the front of the bike. Got my piece of tape here. Again, I'm going to tape the top piece in first, and I am using painter's tape so I do not rip the paint off my motorcycle when I pull the tape off. So I'm just going to kind of put that on real loosely so it holds in place. I'm going to fit the bottom in so it fits in the groove really nice down there. And same thing, I'm just going to kind of tape it in place without, of course, covering my pilot holes, because you cover the pilot holes up, you can't see where you're going to drill that. So I'll put a piece there. And again, I'm checking the top, checking the bottom both, and making sure everything lines up nice and neat down in the bottom. And of course, I'm lining up good down there. So I'm going to tape this one in. And the whole time I'm pushing on this to make sure that it stays in position. So I don't want a bubble back there, because if you get a bubble behind there, when you go to drill it, like I got there, it's going to not line up properly. So you want to make sure you push out the bubbles like you were putting tint or something like that on. The holes are a little bit bigger than what they need to be, so it probably gives you a little bit of leeway. I personally just won't like a lot of leeway in there. I'd rather be as close as possible. Do this one upside down. Put that piece in. And again, I'm just making sure I line up the bottom real good. That way when I tape it in place, it doesn't move on me. Because again, we're going to have to drill some holes in here in a minute. And last thing we need are the holes to be lined up wrong. Use tape. Keep dropping the tape down the side of the bike. And there's my left and right templates in place. Time for the scary part for some people. If you have any doubts at all about doing this, don't do it. Take it to the Kawasaki shop. Take it to somebody who feels comfortable doing it, because you're going to have to drill a hole in this. If you mess up, you're going to be buying a new trunk lid, or you're going to have holes in the front of your trunk lid. There's no fixing it. You're drilling a hole in plastic. It's plastic. Use a nice sharp drill bit. Should drill right through it with no problems at all. I did notice when I was getting ready to line up the drill, just to make sure, this catch right here on the trunk for the key lock is in my way. As you can see, it's going to hit the drill. So I'm going to go grab a Phillips head screwdriver and remove that real quick. All right, let's take the lock mechanism off. You can see from the outside, it looks like it has some thread lock on it. So if you have some thread lock, you might want to put it back on here when you're done. If you don't have any thread lock, it's an easy part. You can change that later. You can pick up some thread lock and stick it back in there later on at a different time. Definitely coming out slow, and there's definitely blue thread lock on here. So when you put it back together, you may want to put the blue thread lock back on. Don't have to. Don't think it's going to fall off. It's just for the locking mechanism back there. But it's definitely on there for a reason from the factory. And it definitely makes it coming out a little bit difficult. And make sure you hold the outside of this locking mechanism as you're turning the screw, because if not, once it gets so loose, what's going to happen is the mechanism is going to spin around on the outside of the bike, and you're going to scratch the crap out of your frame or out of your trunk lid. So I've got those out. Screw stuck a little bit. Just taking the screwdriver, pushing it on through, and there's my locking mechanism off. Back to the fun part. Again, I think the book said 1/16 drill bit. I'm using an 1/8 inch drill bit. It's not going to matter. These are for the pilot holes. Just make sure you line up your X really good on the front. And that way when you pull the trigger, when you run your regular bit through, you're actually going to get the right size. So I'm going to start that in the middle and through. Two, three, and so it's going to be a little bit more difficult without getting in the way of the video, but 1, 2, and 3. So there are my pilot holes. With the pilot holes in there, I can take the templates out of there now, because it's not going to matter because there's already holes in there. So if you messed up, it's too late now. So hopefully you got it right. And the little pilot holes off, and as you can see, 6 little holes in the bike now. I'm going to get this out of the way. I'm going to go grab my bigger bit. We're going to drill some bigger holes. As you can see, my handy dandy little DeWalt case here. It says 8mm. 8mm is actually a 5/16 bit. It's not actually a 5/16. It's probably some oddball number. But either way, the 5/16 is close enough that you don't have to go to the store and buy a metric drill bit. Just going to open up these holes a little bit more. Always make sure on the front there's nothing in the way so you don't drill through it. And you don't want to plunge through there, just inadvertently pop a hole in something you don't want to. So I made sure there's nothing in front. I'm going to line it up to the pilot hole. And I'm going to open them up. And this cable's in the way for the video, but make sure you keep your drill straight too when you do these. You don't want to drill at an angle. And you don't have to use an impact, but I use an impact every day so I feel comfortable with it. So if you don't like the jarring or the ratcheting noise is going to make you feel bad, use a regular drill. Either one will work. Now for the next step. Right hand speaker, 2 mounting brackets, 3 10mm bolts. I'll take the little notch and I'm going to put it towards the inside of the trunk. I'll start this top one. The other plate is going to go on the outside, matching that one. And you're basically going to start one of the bolts. I'm going to start the top one so it hangs in place. And that way I can put the other 2 in. Once I feel this red catch like that, I'm not going to tighten it down because I've still got to get the other 2 bolts in. And you still got to be able to line up the triangle underneath. So I'm going to reach through and pop that one in. Line up the triangle plate. Start the next bolt like so. And then start my last bolt. I'm going to grab the 10mm socket, small extension. I'm going to run these in the rest of the way. I'll snug them up pretty good. I'm not going to over tighten because again we're going into plastic and leather. If you over tighten them, they're going to probably strip out or you're just going to break something. There weren't any torque settings with it, so I'm just going to snug them up really good. And then in a week or so I'll go back through, just double check them, make sure they're still tight. As far as the template went on this side, it actually lined up pretty good. It was off just a hair, but again, with the size of the bolts it gives you, or with the size of the pre-drill, it actually gave you enough room to have a little leeway in there. Again, I'm just going to tighten these up to where they feel snug. I'm going to check the speaker on the outside. Speaker's not moving any. Don't want to over tighten it any. You can always tighten it up later. I don't think they're going to fall off. Tighten all of your bolts up evenly. You don't want to tighten them all up at one time or one up and not the other ones. Check in the front. This thing is solid. This top one. And then basically once I feel it snugging up, I'm just taking one finger and I'm just kind of giving a little pull. Speaker on the outside, solid as can be. And as far as being on there, it's on there. We'll hook the wire up here in a little bit. Okay, we're going to repeat the other side here. Go grab the speaker, the bolts. Be back in just a second. Just a little tip when you mount these. If you need to, or if you are working by yourself, if you line that up, you can obviously see there. I think you can in the video. The holes aren't lining up right. I'll flip the plate. The holes should line up perfectly, which they do in this case. I'm going to take some of my painter's tape. I'm going to actually take it, tear off a little piece. I'm going to make a little roll. I'm going to stick that on the back of the bracket to where you can't see it. I'm going to put that right there. Now, it's not going to hold it in place if you shake it or anything, but it'll hold it in place long enough you can hold it up on the outside of the bike, and it won't fall off while you're trying to screw the other side down. Just for a note, this side was actually different than the other side. The little notch actually went to the outside edge, so basically they're facing the same direction. I'm not sure if that's just a molding issue in Kawasaki's design, but either way, if you drop your bolts through first before you put the speaker on, if the bolts don't go straight through, the bracket's backwards, flip it around the other direction. Second side's done. I'm going to clean up the inside of the trunk there, but as you can see, the speakers are now mounted and they look pretty good from here. We're going to work on the wiring next. Okay, let's take a look at the wiring. Obviously the wires are hanging down there. The book shows it going across here. I'm going to zip tie it right where that is, feed it underneath of that. Come over here. The two connections for the speakers are right underneath the bike. They're pretty easy to find. That one I'm going to do the same thing, down through there, under that, and then we're going to zip tie it in place. Okay, let's pull the rubber band off. I have one of the zip ties that the kit came with here. Realistically, probably any zip tie in the world would work, but I'm going to use that one just because. I'm going to go ahead and feed this underneath my piece of chrome plastic here first. And I'm going to zip tie it right where this other wire is zip tied. I put on some LED lights at one point. I'm going to put it just above that. And that's basically where I zip tied my light to. So I'm going to put it just above that one. Zip tie it in place. And then the seat should cover the exposed wire. So I'm going to keep it up tight. And we'll see what it looks like once I get the seat on. I may have to adjust that a little bit just to make it look a little better. And I'll nip off the end of it. This is going to be a little difficult to hold the camera and hook it up at the same time. Obviously this connector's white, that connector's white, this connector's black, that connector's black. I'm going to go ahead and hook those up, zip tie them in place, and then I'll get back to you. As you can see, I zip tied that there. I ended up grabbing more zip ties, just to tie up the extra wires. I've got a GPS in there and a couple other things. I zip tied it in a couple places up there. The seat should cover that just fine. I did use a few extra zip ties to hold things in place. I've got a GPS underneath the seat here. I'll show you how to do that on a different video. I've also got a USB charger under here that I've basically rigged up to keep the GPS charging all the time. A lot of GPSs like this one that just get stuck on, you have to put them on a power supply of some sort to power them up or to keep them charged. This case, every time I start the motorcycle up, basically while I'm driving, it's charging. So I'm going to knock these zip ties off. Without chopping off the wire. So that would be a bad thing. Okay, everything's cleaned up. My two connections are made. They're zip tied in place. Everything's zip tied up out of the way. Made sure I wasn't pinching anything. All right, next step is turn it on, see what she sounds like, and then make sure everything works. And then we'll reassemble everything. And again, some of these wires may need some minor adjusting. I'm sure they probably will to make sure it fits on the seat. We don't want to pinch it off with the seat. We also don't want to be able to see the wires either, which would be more annoying to me. So let's turn it on and see what's playing. Okay, so everything works. So we're going to go through the process of putting it back together. We'll start by putting the trunk lock back in, put the tray back in, put the seat back on. Should be fairly easy to reassemble. First in the process here, this part that was on the inside, this is where your lock catches. Outside, of course, I'm going to pop my threads through here first. This is my latch for the outside. There are a couple pins here at the bottom that will line up in the holes below. And that probably actually keeps you from spinning it around too. Let's start those in there. I've got a pretty good amount of thread lock still on those, so I'm going to trust it to stay in place. Again, all this stuff I'll double check again in about a week, just to make sure nothing's vibrated loose, came loose, or needs adjusted in some way. So again, holding this in place from the outside, that way it does not spin around. I started both screws at the same time so it does not spin around on me. Just going to snug it up first, and then I'll tighten it down once I get it snug. If you have a shorter screwdriver, it may help. If you get a stubby, my screwdriver handle's hitting the back of the trunk lid, but it's good enough to get that in there. And again, you don't need to over tighten any of this stuff. A lot of people want to crank it down, but it's plastic. If you crank down plastic, you're going to break plastic. Something's going to crush, give, crack. You're going to crack your paint, chip your paint, something like that. Back to the trunk insert. Got my 4 little push pins that I had before. This slides in at a little bit of an angle underneath of these bolts here. If not, you'll catch it. Pain in the butt. We'll take our 4 tabs. Now to reset these tabs, what you have to do, you have to take the pin and push it up through so it sticks upward. You drop it in the hole. Make sure you're through both pieces of plastic. And then take the pin, push it flush with your finger so it fits on there flat. And repeat that on the 4 corners. Again, make sure you're through not only the tray, but you're actually into the housing itself. Just going to put a little pressure down on it just to make sure you got pressure on there so it doesn't pop through. They use rivets. If you get on eBay, they sell them in packs of 100. They're like $5. I would highly suggest buying some of these if you plan on working on body parts on your bike, because sooner or later you're going to snap one of them off. They're going to break. When I go to show you how to do the fairing tutorial, you will see I actually used one from a different bike. I used one from a Suzuki. All the push pins work, but they don't necessarily look alike. If you have problems with cosmetics, which a lot of people do, especially if it's a newer bike like this one, you want everything to match. So you want to get some different tabs. There's 4 or 5 different types of tabs. You can get on bikebandit.com, get the model number, makes, sizes, models. That way you actually get the ones that match the bike if you want. If not, you buy the cheap generic versions. Close that lid. Make sure I latch, which I do since I took that off. And we're going to go around putting the seat back on. The seat, if you're not taking your seat off before, there's a couple little quick tricks to it. One, there's a little catch right here. There's a little tab right here. That has to go underneath of that. So you've got to kind of line it up to where you think it would be. When you push it forward, keeping your back tabs lined up here, you'll feel when it catches underneath there, and you'll know that I missed. That time it caught. So I know it's on there. 2 little tabs are in the back. I'll just make sure those are on there. The front will definitely be caught. If the front is not down, then you did it wrong. Same on the back. There's a little plastic tab here. And on the back of the bike, there's a little tab right here. That catches underneath of that backwards. And you press down. And there's our installed rear speaker kit. Looks pretty good. Not sure that I'm super happy with the way the wires look. May end up going back later and possibly drilling a hole in the trunk lid and feeding the wire through the trunk and then back down on the bottom somewhere. But as far as a regular install, it's out of the way. It's zip tied down. It's not going to get caught if you've got a passenger back there. They're not going to catch it or anything. So overall, looks good. Again, that was the 2018 VN1700 Kawasaki Vulcan. Thanks for watching.